This is the comparison between the DJI Action 2 and the GoPro Hero 10 Black. Both insane cameras, but maybe for different people. Let's jump into the video. So let me just start off by saying these two cameras are both great cameras. If you buy either one of these, you are going to be incredibly happy. They both work great. Some of them have some annoyances, but that's going to be with all cameras. So now that's out of the way, let's first talk about the pros of the GoPro and the pros of the Action, and then we'll switch to the cons, and then we'll wrap it up by saying which ones they're for. So starting off with the DJI Action 2 pros, this camera, I would say the main pro to it, the biggest pro you're gonna see is the size. It is slimmer than the GoPro. It is just way more compact and such more of a nice size to put onto something, and the size for the Action is definitely a huge pro. Number 2 pro for this Action is the insane frame rates and resolution it can do. You get 4K 120, which the GoPro 10 does as well, but that's really good for such a small little camera. It also has really good photo quality due to that bigger sensor at 12 megapixels. Another pro for the Action 2 is that incredible back screen. It's so nice and big compared to the size of the Action, and it really works well, and I have really no complaints for it. I mean, they couldn't really put anything bigger in there. And the last pro that I want to mention for the DJI Action 2 is that the magnetic system works really well. This is something that you might be skeptical of, but I absolutely love it. Over to the GoPro, and there's a lot of good things about this. Number 1, right off the bat, is the front-facing screen. On this GoPro Hero 10, you've got this front-facing LED screen, which is super nice for seeing yourself, framing a shot. Absolutely awesome. For this, you have to buy the screen mod, which is over $500, not worth it. Number 2 for the GoPro is its resolutions. It does higher resolutions than this, so the max 4K resolution for this is 4K 60. I'm sorry. The max resolution for this is 4K 120, and this is 4K 120. But jumping over to 5K, this does no 5K, while this does 5.3K 60. So yeah, that's definitely good for the GoPro. I don't know how many people are gonna use that, but it's nice that it's there. It also shoots 23 megapixel photos. That's awesome. The third pro to this GoPro are these folding feet. That is something that's so nice about this GoPro. This is all you need to take with you in your bag, and then you just pop it out, put in your screw thing on your mount, and you're good to go. Coming to the last pro of this, and this is kind of 2 pros, but is how modular it is. This front lens pops off. You can put on max lens mods, macro lens mods, all sorts of things. You can add some lenses on the Action, but it doesn't come off. So if you ever crack this, you can just pop on a new one. Not a big deal. So that's awesome. Plus, it's also got a removable battery and SD card. Okay, and now for the cons. And there is quite a few with both these cameras, but let's start off with the Action 2. So the biggest con is the modular system. So this camera is awesome like this, but when you add the mods, it does not become waterproof, which is just a big pain because the battery in this is really small. You've got a built-in 22 gigabyte card in here. So it's kind of like, that's a big downside for people who do a lot of water sports. Number 2 con to this camera is that although the screen is nice, it is small. The camera is so small that the screen is small, so that's kind of a given, and it's not a huge con, but definitely something to keep in mind. GoPro screen is definitely bigger, and I'd say touch responsive, they're about the same. This one is looks a little bit nicer, but yeah, the screen size, not the actual screen, but the screen size on this is just not the best. And another big con, I kind of already mentioned this, but the lens is non-replaceable. So if you don't, I have a screen protector on here, but if you do not, and you scratch it or crack it, it's over. Your camera, you have to send it in. That's definitely something that you have to consider. It's not a deal breaker because you put a screen protector on there, but it's something you have to consider. And another con to this is once you add this, let's say you're going out to film, and you put this on a stick, just look how tall that is. Are you really going to be, it kind of gets a little bit like lopsided because it's so tall. I don't know how many people are gonna be walking around with a big stick with this big, tall Action. So yeah, that's pretty much all the cons for this. There are a couple more small ones, but I don't have time to get into that. So now let's jump over to the GoPro cons. Starting off, and I would say the major con to this is the size. It is big. This camera is like big and bulky and just way bigger than the Action. If you use the Action without the pack, it's just so much smaller. And it feels like a camera you could put in more places than this bigger, bulkier camera. So that is just a big con for a lot of people, I would say. And the last con is the sensor size. Again, I kind of mentioned that, but it's not that big. Action is bigger, and the sensor size just kind of is not the best. And I wish it had the sensor size closer to this. Both of them do not have the best sensor size, but GoPro definitely lacking more than the Action. Okay, so that's it for pros and cons. Now to the final verdict of these two cameras. I would say if you are a person that just goes out and films your camera, films in the pool, films for a couple things outside, and just wants a camera to bring around, they don't really want the complexity of having a big battery charger, charging 4 or 5 batteries, plugging it in and out, and just doing all of that, I would say the Action is the way to go. It's all built in, super easy, and it's really just a nice all-around camera. However, if you are a power user, you like to bring your camera to the most potential, you like to use it a lot, put it in all different types of situations, and you really like to just have flexibility, adding a mic right there, adding a bigger monitor, adding whatever you want to add, adding a wider lens, then the GoPro is definitely the way to go. I absolutely love this camera. I have reviews on both these cameras down in the description below. So if you want to see that, you can go check them out. But yeah, these both have their strengths and weaknesses. And overall, I would say the GoPro might be a little bit better. However, there is a lot of cons to this that could make this way better for you. So that kind of wraps up my review. I hope this helped you. If it does, please leave a like and subscribe. I'm doing a tech giveaway very soon, so make sure you subscribe for that, and I will see you in the next one.